Buckle up, with Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan. Let's fill our cups. Commander decks in hand, the battle's about to start. A podcast for the legends, where magic meets the heart. Commander's Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains, new and old. Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan guide the way in the world of EDH we play.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Commander's Pod. Thank you for joining us. We have Sloan back this week.
Hello.
And Jeff.
Hey, what's up?
And as always, my name's Duncan, and thanks for joining us. We're going to do things a little different this week. We have a couple topics we just want to talk about. So we're going to talk about things that don't do... no, we're not. We're not doing that segment. We're going to talk about commander tax. We're going to do our counter spell. It's going to be about commander's tax, and is it fair? And we're going to get into why it might not be, why it is.
Interesting.
We're going to talk about new format that has come out. It's not Commander specifically, but it's very similar. And it's something that kind of piqued Jeff's interest, and it kind of got us talking about like how things used to be. And so we're going to talk about that. And we're also going to talk about there's a new CEDH Rules Committee trying to get started. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And yeah, so Jeff, why don't you set it up? What was it you wanted to talk about today?
Well, there's a thing called Highlander Gauntlet,
Right.
that apparently exists, which I was sort of interested in because it's instead of having singleton in one 100 card deck, it's singleton but 6 100 card decks.
Like across the six.
Across the six. So you can only have one Soul Ring.
Across all six decks, you
All
can only
six
have one
decks. Yeah. And I don't know if they're doing Commander for this yet, but I would just do it Commander. So I'd have 6 Commander decks with unique cards in every deck.
So you'd want to do an EDH Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Because EDH is
EDH
Elder
Gauntlet.
Dragon Highlander. For those that don't know, Highlander is a modification of a magic system whereby you cannot have any more than one of any non-basic land. Anything but basic lands you can only have one of.
Yeah, it's based off the awesome movie Highlander, where there can only be one.
Right.
Where the guy has to kill all the other people so he gets all the power.
Right.
And there can only ever be one.
Right.
So that's
there can
the
only
idea.
be one
Yeah.
card besides basic lands.
Yeah, so when you build your deck this way, I think it gets back to the classicness of what Magic was supposed to be, where you had all these cards that you couldn't use because the set had switched and you wanted someplace to use them, so you used them in Commander. And so you didn't necessarily have all the best cards in every one of your decks. You had to spread them out.
Right.
But now, with as popular as Commander is, there's a Soul Ring that's probably an easy one. That probably goes in every deck. But Teferi's Pro in every deck. Rhystic Study in every deck. You know, like the really good cards are just in every deck. So every deck really looks the same.
Yeah. The core cards. When I'm building a blue deck, the core cards tend to all be the same.
Yeah, so this gets back to the beauty of it where, no, it's actually singleton.
Right, and the
You're not
idea
gonna
of
see
this
the
one
same
is
thing.
that before you play, you roll a d6 to pick one deck. Have you heard about this one, Johnny?
Yeah, I remember you briefly talked about it when you were about to go on your trip you went on, and you had brought it up and mentioned it. And I definitely thought it's interesting because in my mind, it kind of re-levels the playing field for people who don't have the luxury of being able to buy 50 copies of Teferi's Protection.
Right.
Or here's a better example, specifically for Commander, I'll bring up for Jeff. Jeweled Lotus. That card's at what, $150?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need 6 of them for 6 Commander decks?
Yeah.
No. no, I don't.
Or the Goblin.
Yeah, Dockside Extortionist, that's a $50 card. So I think it's a really cool concept because what it will do, it will allow you to still have really powerful cards, but you have to strategically place them through 6 decks now instead of being able just to throw them on all 6 decks. So I do think the concept of it is very intriguing, and I do think it could be super cool to do, especially with the randomization of you actually don't get to pick which deck you're going to play.
Right.
It's let's say hypothetically it's a 3-round tournament. You have to roll 1d6 and then you get to use that deck. Now I don't know if they eliminate that deck after it's been used.
Yes,
and you
after it's been used, you don't play it again.
So yeah, so then you roll 1d5 and then a 1d4 and until there's no
And
decks left.
if we were interested in doing this, I would just change some of my decks.
Right. So
Yeah.
Jeff's idea is you take this and apply it to Commander.
Yeah.
Play a gauntlet in EDH.
Yes.
You know, I think that's a cool idea. I think it's something that could definitely shake things up. And I will tell you, so I am playing in the Highlander Gauntlet tournament. There's a free tournament going on in Vegas.
At MagicCon.
At MagicCon.
Yep.
And I'm playing in that. So I have to build these decks. It's hard. It is so hard.
Now, is that an EDH format?
It is not.
Or is it a
not.
60 card?
It's a Highlander format, which is a 100 card singleton.
Okay.
Okay. So, but it's not commander. There's no commander.
Right. Okay. So it is the same size of a commander deck, but there's no one helming the deck. So you can technically put as many colors as you want in each deck.
I thought about like playing with that and being like, yeah, but I'm just gonna play commander because I'm gonna play tutors and I'm gonna go get my commander and then it's commander.
Oh, that would be hard.
It is hard, and the other thing is they're just gonna remove your commander and now he doesn't go to a command zone.
Yeah, unless you're playing recursion, then
So
recursion would be good.
It's very difficult to build. I'll tell you, you got to put some thought into it. You're like, I'm gonna have blue in a couple of my decks, right? But there's only counterspell is 2 mana. Mana drains 2 mana. Narset's reversal's 2 mana.
Yeah.
The rest of them are like 3 or 4 mana.
He's trying to figure out how to build all 6 of his decks as still the same type of blue deck. That's hilarious.
What's the other one that's free? The blue one that's free?
A Force of Will.
Force of Will.
And there's Force of Negation.
Yeah.
And there's Fierce Guardianship does you no good.
Pact of Negation.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
there's no commander. Well, it's still 2 and 1. It's still a counterspell.
You can
remember, guys. Just because you don't get it for free doesn't mean it's not a counterspell.
Right.
I mean, it's not a good counterspell.
You know what doesn't do anything? Command Tower.
Yeah.
You're not color fixing with Command Tower anymore.
Yeah.
Mox Amber becomes way less viable. Yeah. At least now you can think, when I get my commander out, at least it will tap for something. You can't guarantee you're gonna have anything out it will tap for.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really hard.
It's definitely, I think, a cool idea and a cool concept. And luckily, with it already being a 100 card format, turning it to commander is really simple. You just pick a card and that's your commander, and then you build it like normal, except with the exceptions of the format. So I definitely think it is cool, and I definitely think it'd be something that would be fun to do, because I think what would be really fun is if you kind of did it, if you did a tournament style of this, a commander version, and basically the way it worked was it didn't randomize your where you went to play next at the next table. You basically just have 6 pods set up of 4, and then like everyone just kind of shuffles around to their next spot. So that way, one, you're pretty much guaranteed you're not going to hit the same pod again because there's 6 different tables, and then you get to go through all 6 decks, and then basically whoever stands at the top at the end of it with the most points, that's the winner.
So you need 24 players.
That would take a long time. Holy cow, that'd be the longest tournament ever.
It would take, but here's the thing though. If someone gets their best deck against other people's weakest decks, like that game might go faster. But then if you get all 4 weak decks at the same table, it's like 3 hours later.
Oh my head.
But you would definitely set time limits, obviously, for the tournament.
That would not be the longest tournament ever. Let me just tell you, the CEDH tournament I just played in when I was in SGG Con. So this is CEDH. This is fast EDH, right?
Yeah.
Right.
We started at 9 a.m. That tournament didn't end until almost 9 p.m. It was like 8 o'clock when it ended.
Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah, see, I could do that. I wouldn't even blink an eye if I did that.
It was fun. It was a great time.
And I think that's why. I think because you're just constantly playing and you're getting to interact with people and do fun stuff.
With CEDH though, and especially with Nadu, with so many triggers and having to worry about how much time you're taking because there is timed rounds, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and I will say too, I think, and this was like was this your first not at the shop tournament you played in, or have you done one before?
I've done them before, but this is my biggest one I've done.
Yeah,
because this one, the grand prize was $1,100.
Yeah, and I will say, speaking from not competitive Magic play, but I've done other sports very competitively at a somewhat higher level. With no money on the line, it was very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what it felt like when it's like, all right, am I doing this trigger right? Am I giving everyone enough time to respond? Am I doing this?
Yeah.
Am I taking too much time? I can only imagine what that was like.
Yeah, my nerves were a bit shot, and like I did not want to play. I had to take like a 2-hour break afterwards before I played regular Magic again, because I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So no, tournaments could be long in your format, but I don't think they'd be any worse than that.
But I do think it would be super fun because it's like you kind of want to manipulate how you build the 6 decks. Like maybe like I'm going to stack 1 deck, so that way, like I have like a guaranteed win. But maybe not.
I don't think I would.
No, that's a gamble. If you do that, you
that
may
is
never
what
roll
Johnny
that
would
die.
do.
Yeah.
That's 100% what
But
Johnny
what I'm
would do.
saying is in that format where you're guaranteed to go through all 6 decks. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you have one game I got like this, but then like I'm dumping all my good stuff in this one deck, so I got to find somewhat good substitutes for the other one. I definitely think it's cool. I definitely think it's something that we should maybe try to experiment with and see. Maybe not 6 decks. Maybe we can knock it down to like 3, so it's not as difficult to get them built.
When you do that, though, I think it's got to be 6.
Well, you can take decks you have, right?
Yep.
You take out your Soul Ring, put in a Mind Stone. Take out your Arcane
Maybe you
Signet.
can. I can't.
Well, I'm just saying. So I can. I have plenty of decks.
Yeah, I mean, coming from someone that has 90 decks, I think almost or close to it.
Yeah,
it's a little bit
getting
easier
up
than
there.
someone that has like 10.
Yeah. But I think it could be fun. I think we should try it.
Yeah, for
100%.
sure.
I'm
I definitely think that for sure would be a fun video for us to make and get out there on the YouTubes. Is
Once we get our decks built.
yeah,
like,
get our deck built and then we can do
We'll-
like
we'll
a couple Highlander.
have
games.
to pick a fourth person, whether it's Andrew or somebody else, to be the fourth person.
Yeah.
No, it'd be fun. We should do a 6-video series for that to see who the winner is of the Highlander. So each
a great
video, each video would be one game, and at the end of it, whoever accumulates the most points is the Highlander champion.
All right, we're doing things here, but
They will be Obi-Wan, as
Yeah.
you guys said earlier.
Yeah.
what? No. Duncan. Matter of fact, I think one of the Highlanders was named Duncan.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
there? Was
so,
he the?
so little known fact. So my name's Duncan. My friends always called me Duncan MacLeod, the Highlander, when I was like in high school and outside of high school and college and after college.
We have never called him that.
No,
though.
never.
No.
You call me Podfather. I like that one.
Yeah,
I've used that one.
Podfather's a good one.
I've used that one a few times.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say, just so everyone understands the age difference here, I have never seen this movie. It came out before I was born.
That is not an excuse.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not an excuse, but I'm
You
just
never
saying
saw
the
the
movie
TV show either?
again before I was born.
Such a good show
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. But anyway, so I was Duncan MacLeod. Connor MacLeod was the MacLeod from the movies. Duncan MacLeod was the one from the TV show.
Okay.
I always knew I would name my son Connor.
Is that
That's
really
hilarious.
why?
That's why.
Oh my
Wild.
gosh.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, that's why. Because he was going to be the other MacLeod,
I
Okay.
mean,
even though it's
Jeff's
not my last
cousin
name.
named his kid after a Darth Sith, so I guess
Well, and I named my kid after my favorite role.
after his favorite character he made in freaking Riffs.
Yeah, in a role playing game. Yeah.
Both of your sons are named
Yeah.
after characters
Yeah.
you created in a fake
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
So, but
And it wasn't Jaden the father of Paxton in
No.
the game?
No.
No, it wasn't. He wasn't.
No. Paxton was a gunslinger.
Oh, that's right. Jaden, okay, I don't want to go into it because it sounds weird saying your son's name and what happened in that game. But yeah, that is true. Both of his characters he created before he had his sons, and then he named his sons after his
Right.
2 characters,
so
which is hilarious.
you know, yeah, we all named our sons. Of course,
We are true nerds.
no, you true. I think I win the true nerd. My son's middle name
If it's McLeod, I'm going to smack you.
is Stanley.
Oh my gosh.
So my last name's Lee. His middle name is Stan, so it could be Stanley. So he
Nice.
is Connor Stanley.
R.I.P. baby.
Yeah. But and I have a picture of my family with Stanley.
I remember you went to MegaCon, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
cool.
So
And you have a good discussion here too. That's
Yeah, so-
near and dear to your
So,
heart.
talking about, so there's a CEDH Rules Committee trying to start up separate from, because right now the regular EDH Rules Committee also governs CEDH. And as I've said on this podcast many times, as we discussed, and you guys have agreed, there
Yep.
should be a separate council. I think that
100%.
pretty much everybody agrees on that.
Right.
Yep.
It's hard to see the drastic difference in CEDH and EDH and think they can play by the same rules.
Well, and to be clear, not everybody does. Otherwise, we would have one.
right.
So
But so there is one that's trying to start up. I think they have 3 members right now. They're trying to figure out a 4th member.
maybe you could be it.
I don't think so. I don't play enough CEDH. I would not be qualified. I've dabbled in it. That's it. And I haven't even won anything.
Hey, you
But
got second place though.
I got second place. Yeah. But so the controversy is nobody asked these people to do it. They just said, we're going to do this.
That's how everything gets done.
I guess, but why these guys? There's no clout.
Do we have?
Yeah, but why? Because they did it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
basically
that's like
what's
in the
happening.
modern any art museum. You go in there and you go, "Why is this art?" It's a blank page. As the first person to do that.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how all the stuff starts.
Well, I mean, I guess so. Do we have the names of the 3 people and what their affiliation to Magic is?
So the names are out there. I'm not here to give them clout, so I don't want to say their names, right?
Okay.
But what I will say, so one of them works for one of the online card shops.
Okay.
All right. So number one, that's another controversy because now the decisions they have will have direct impact on the cost of cards, and they have a conflict of interest because they work for somebody who cares about the cost of cards.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
there is a conflict of interest, but there is currently, to my knowledge, there is no rules against insider trading.
There's
It's
no
probably
rules
frowned
against it, but
about.
Wizards watches it and will remove the rights of companies that violate it.
That's got to be going on, though, I'm sure.
It could be, but I mean, who can say?
Well, I mean, that same idea is kind of squashed when you realize who's on the Commander's Council and
how many of them work for Wizards?
yeah, like it's kind of like
Well,
that's
so-
kind of silly to
so-
say because it's like, well, they know what cards are coming out before they
the
come
rules
out,
committee,
and they get to make judgments on them based off of their preferences, and then furthermore, they could insiders
well,
trade,
so
like Jeff
hold
saying.
on, because the rules committee,
Which I'm not suggesting just to be clear, I'm not
Right.
suggesting anyone at Wizards is insider trading. I think it's more like people on the outside.
right? Influencers could have an effect.
buying up a card, selling off a
Yeah.
card. They're 100% doing that.
Right.
And
So the rules committee, to my knowledge, does not have any members that work for Wizards. The advisory committee is a different matter. And I don't know if anybody's directly employed by Wizards, but they're sponsored by Wizards.
Right, that's what I'm saying though. Like
Yeah.
a lot of them have affiliations back to Wizards because I think
Yeah.
the Command Zone doesn't Josh Lee Kwai, isn't he on the advisory
I
council?
think he might be, but
And he's a direct.
that's why I don't actually have a problem with this. Like
So
at the end of the day, I think it'd be really good to have a rules committee for CEDH. So whoever wants to do it, go
Right.
do
But so the argument is why these guys.
Yeah.
And
do we
so,
know what the other two guys do before you?
one of them, I
anything that's
believe,
relevant?
is a regular tournament player. He plays in big tournaments.
Okay,
for
so
CEDH.
essentially a
there's
pro.
some. Yeah, basically there is no pro for CEDH, but I think he's up there with people that would be recognizable to people that follow it.
Okay,
Sure.
and then the other person would be.
The other person I do not remember, but has some experience in those
Okay.
tournaments as well.
well, but even having someone who plays CDH tournaments regularly, you could see bias coming in because like, oh, I don't like playing against that card. We should ban it.
Well,
but
every
that's-
human being in the world is biased.
Right. That's why I think that's a silly argument for people to be saying that. Is my point.
Oh, okay,
Like
okay.
it's a very broad terminology that you're trying to use to deter people.
I think
from doing
Duncan's
something.
not saying bias. I think he's
So-
saying conflict of interest, meaning
Right.
that he may
Well-
ban a card that he may choose not to ban a card that the shop has a lot of, and may choose to ban a card that the shop doesn't have a lot of or something. I would assume
Right.
that's kind of the idea of the conflict of interest.
Or if they know that something's going to be banned.
oh,
or
they know
unbanned,
ahead of time, so
They
they,
know
won't
ahead of
order.
time.
they can sell it off.
Yes.
Yeah. Before.
So
Okay.
that they would have insider information.
Well, but that you could say the same thing about the quote unquote competitive player.
Right. No, it's very true.
Yeah,
Wait,
right?
how would he do that?
So essentially, if he knew something was going to get banned, he wouldn't invest in trying to build that new commander that's about
Well,
to come out.
so
So he would
yeah,
he
yeah,
would
yeah.
go
So the
elsewhere
other
and-
thing that I think would have to happen, I don't know if he's fully thought this. I don't think he should be allowed to play in tournaments if he's making the rules
Right.
for the tournament.
I see. I don't have a problem with any of it.
Oh.
Just I think there is something where the audience at large will hold them accountable. Like if that guy started, if either one of them started doing it, it would come out eventually, and hopefully then people
dealt
would
with.
have an uproar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
I mean, I would say that you're probably your best people to be on some kind of competitive committee are people that are tournament directors or judges. I know that when we had Andrew here, he talked about how the judging system kind of collapsed during COVID, right before basically right when COVID happened. But those people I think are going to be, especially if they're people who don't actually play in CDH tournaments, but they're judges and tournament directors. Those, in my opinion, those are kind of your best people to be making decisions like this because they really have no skin in the game. So you can't really say, oh, that's biased because you don't like playing that, you're blah, blah, blah. So you can't really get that argument. But they also know the rules hopefully well enough and stay on top of the rules that they can kind of see potential problems and issues with cards that are coming out, would be my opinion. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't play in CDH tournaments that often. I don't do a lot of CDH stuff. I think I've maybe played in one EDH tournament with Duncan like a couple months ago.
So you
CEDH.
brought up like Josh
So-
Lee Kwai, right?
Right.
Yeah. So he's not a judge He doesn't play in tournaments. But if you've watched any of his content, I'm going to give him a huge amount of credit. He's a very professional, successful person even before he got into this.
Right.
He's very intelligent and he's very reasonable. And he's very connected to a lot of different parts of the community. So he's like one of the perfect guys to have on something like that because he understands what happens if you make a decision. Like he's been in business long enough that he understands you make a decision, there's all these effects.
Right.
So sometimes even if the decision makes sense rule-wise, it may have an effect to the game and to the people in the game that is not good. And so maybe you don't make that decision.
So let's talk about the biggest problem with this new rules committee and why it's controversial. They haven't asked for permission from the current rules committee that I know of.
Yeah.
They've received no blessing from them who has control over this now to do this. But by the same token, nor have they come out and said, we don't approve.
Right.
This is
And this just
a fan
goes
club.
to further my thing that I've been saying, that the current rules committee is a do nothing. They are not going to do anything. The rumor is they're going to redraft a new committee in the new year when January hits or after.
Well, did anyone get permission to make EDH? Maybe they did. I mean, I'm
No,
asking,
they didn't. But that's
you
a
know?
brand new format, not dependent on something else.
Well, and in the same way, these guys could just say, look, the way you're doing it now, CDH is not really a format. Why? Because it doesn't have its own rules.
You could use that argument for sure.
I mean,
We're
you
gonna make
can,
it a format.
But they have banned cards for CEDH. Flash was banned purely for the CEDH player.
But it wasn't just banned in CDH. It was also banned in EDH.
Right, but I'm saying it was chosen
Yes.
because the CEDH players.
So they recognize the format kind of exists, but they refuse to
Separate
treat
it.
it differently.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
They just say
because it's a different game.
right. It is a different game, and it should have a separate council. And I hope
Right.
they don't fight it. But by the same token, if a rules committee was to be legitimate, I think it should come from them, as in at least they say, we're giving these guys our blessings to do this. If they did that, I think that would solve any argument about anything. If
Well,
they're
and
okay
they
with
better
it-
get ahead of it, because if they don't do something, someone else just will. And
Right.
guess
And
what?
that's
The
what just
world
happened.
can choose to just follow them.
Well, and that's what's trying to happen.
Yeah.
But I don't think it'll work because of all these problems. I don't think this CEDH rules committee, because people have tried before, maybe not this publicly, but people have tried before to do this, and they've failed because they don't have the clout, the backing, the following to do it.
And this brings up a good question too, and I hate to sort of put it out there, but you got to kind of ask the question, why are they not doing it? And, maybe part of the reason is because if you separate the two, now you open the area for more bannings in EDH, for more bannings in CEDH, because now they don't affect each other. And when you ban a card, guess what happens to it?
Value goes down.
Value goes down.
Yeah.
So when you ban a bunch of cards, you lower the value of Magic in general. And maybe people don't want that to happen.
I mean,
Well, but if you're
maybe
doing
that's
a
a question
new
we need to be
ban list,
asking.
if you're doing a new ban list, I don't think it would.
Sure it
I don't think that because it's not dependent on a separate ban list now. I think the argument would be it may not have as big of an effect
but
you
I
mean
think
if
what
CDH is separate?
I think what Jeff is saying
because
is
other
once-
cards would be unbanned for them that are banned now.
But I think what
Yeah.
Jeff is saying, then you have the flip side of that, where there will be cards that are banned in EDH because now there's a CDH ban list.
100%.
So for example, right now Nadu's not banned, right?
Right.
If they create a CEDH community, who do you think is going to get banned
Yeah.
in EDH?
He should.
Yeah, 100%.
But
He'll
I
be
d-
banned in EDH.
He
very
won't.
if,
He in the current committee he won't.
but also in the current committee, there's no competitive.
But maybe
CEDH,
that's the right question.
But-
Maybe we weren't asking the right question. Maybe that's the right question, which is why isn't Nadu being banned in EDH?
right.
And that's why I'm saying maybe it is value.
I've told you why. Because they're not going to do anything without Shudden Memory. They have no leadership.
Yeah,
they are not doing anything.
Duncan's rule is
know that I
that
believe that. But
they pretty much none of them were doing anything except for the one guy. Then he passed away, and it just showed that none of them were doing anything.
Well, no, they did stuff with him. It was a
Right, it
partnership,
was-
but he was the face. They didn't want to be the face.
He was helming everything.
Yeah, he was the one pushing it forward. He's the one, the face, the one who made the.
Well,
they
they
don't
were-
want to do that. And
were
I
they
get
all
it.
friends?
Yes.
Okay, well, right now, look, if you lost on your close, you might not be. Maybe that's why they're choosing a new
but
committee.
it's
Is these guys are
it's
just
been
done.
2 years.
These folks are. Hasn't been 2 years.
It hasn't it? Maybe it's been a year, but regardless, it's been a long time.
But
Time
maybe
is
they
blurry.
just don't have the heart for
And
it
at
anymore.
least they should be stepping out right now and saying, hey, we understand there's somebody talking about this. We're working with them behind the scenes, or we need to reach out to them. We didn't know anything about that. They should say something.
Yeah,
They're-
I mean, it's hard. This
As
is a
the
tough
current
one. Yeah.
people who are holding that thing in their hand, they should be saying at least whether they're for this, against this. They're not even saying that. That just proves to me they're not going to do anything. Like I said, the rumor is they're going to redraft a new committee in the new year, and then they'll start doing things. But in the meantime, I'd feel
It kind of makes it seem like the gentleman who passed away was really going to all
Sheldon
of them.
Menery.
Yeah, was just kind of going to them and getting them to say yes or no, and then he would come out and do it. And now that he's not there doing that, like you said, it kind of
they had regular meetings. They do keep a website.
Right, but-
now here's the thing: their website's been talked about because it runs like on really old web software.
Right.
It crashes all the time when there's
Yeah.
when they did ban updates. It would always crash when people tried to go and look at them. It was,
I also think we don't know enough about this situation. We're
speculating.
speculating. We don't know. I mean,
but I think the proof is in the pudding. They have said nothing about Nadu one way or the other. They've said nothing about this committee one way or the other. They've said nothing at all one way or the other about anything.
I mean, yeah, in a
didn't
long
they just
time,
come
it's
out
just-
and say something though not too long ago about
I think they said we're continuing to monitor the Nadu situation.
yeah?
But-
So they haven't said nothing
But
because
I
that's
mean,
something.
you might as well have said
that's,
nothing.
that's saying something
They didn't
about
do anything,
but
but they said something.
they said something that equated to nothing because
Right. they gave you empty words.
I mean, and
Maybe.
to the argument that you made for Nadu, it does look like, for the most part, we're not seeing them a lot being played in regular EDH.
Because
Right.
everyone
And-
will get mad at you as soon as you show
Oh yeah,
them.
and
your-
they should.
That's
Yeah,
why they
right,
don't
and-
have to ban it.
Yeah, because for whatever reason, they think that the community yelling at people when they try to play a card is more sufficient than just banning it,
Well,
or whatever their justification may be. But I think ultimately with the CEDH and EDH rule set, it would ban some cards in EDH and open up some cards in CEDH, I think. And so there is a level of it could cause issues, because what if you're playing a commander casually and then all of a sudden it gets banned in EDH? And even technically, EDH rules are kind of just guidelines, as Pirates of the Caribbean says.
Yeah.
You don't really have to follow them if you don't want to. Like,
Well,
there's
that's
one
true
saying-
of anything unless you're in a
right,
tournament.
but the difference with CEDH is if that is an official rule for going into tournaments, then yes, you do have to follow that, right? Like that's the difference.
Well, it's the same thing. If there are
If
commander
there's
tournaments,
if there's an EDH tournament, then yes, the rules apply. But nothing is stopping you from going into your local card shop right now and playing Nadu and making everyone mad while you play solitaire for 45 minutes on turn 2.
And
There's
I will
nothing
say,
stopping you from doing
even
it.
in CEDH. So in that tournament I was in, there was 61 players.
Yeah.
There was only 4 Nadu decks.
Yeah, that's a little surprising.
That was the same as the number of Crick decks.
interesting.
So he's kind of, at least in the local one I went to, he was not that big an influence. Now we'll see what happens. When I go to Vegas, I'm not going to play in the CEDH tournament, but I'll see what I see.
yeah, see what
Yeah,
the
see
decks
what-
are, what's listed.
That's kind of a side thing.
well, those
but-
were good discussions for sure.
no, I thought those were both good.
Yeah, so the one that I kind of wanted to bring up was the commander tax. You had actually mentioned this in the counter spell
Yep.
that we were going to talk about today. So the idea of, is commander tax fair, since Magic keeps making ways to get around it by either abilities on cards or certain colors that they create cards for to allow you to get around it. In
Right.
my personal opinion, I don't see an issue with it. I do know that that's coming from someone who plays Yuriko, which just command jitsu, so commander tax doesn't affect me ever,
Right.
which I know is a little biased. But I will say that there are also non-colored ways to get your commander out of the command zone and back into your hand, so you can cast them at its normal cost, right?
Right.
Besides just ability on commanders themselves, there are other ways. I believe command beacon's the land that lets you do it, or
Yep.
and then there's also an artifact that lets you do it. You can tap it, sacrifice it, and then you can put it in your
There's
hand.
a golem that if it hits the opponent, then that'll allow you to take the commander and put it into play from the command zone.
Right. So there are a couple ways to do it that aren't color specific. So there's non-colored ways to do it that allow you to do it in any commander deck. Secondly, if your entire strategy revolves solely around having your commander out, probably need to have some other win conditions in your deck. That's on you. And in my opinion, that is a deck building issue, not a command tax issue.
But
That would be my opinion.
so
on it.
speaking as somebody who plays Lisa Shroud of Dusk, another commander that can get around command tax, I play that deck. I pay life instead of commander tax.
I am more than happy to make you pay life to pay. Cash your
Life is a
commander.
resource. I'm more than
Yeah,
happy to
yeah,
pay
I'm,
it.
I'm annoyed by that. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Keep paying your life.
So I pay 2 life instead of 2 mana for commander
Yeah.
tax. So again, if it's 2 times, then it's 4 life.
I
And
don't
3 times.
think I play any of those commanders, but I do play Eminence commanders, which are equally as unfair.
I mean, those
Yeah,
are
those-
because you
those
don't
are
even
way
have
worse.
to cast
They
them.
should either open up.
I don't
more
think
of
they're
those.
worse, but
I do.
Well, the one they created, was it this year or the end of last year, was not good.
No,
Right.
well, because they realized how overpowered that ability was, and they're like, "Oh, we should not do this."
Yeah, or just do it more. I mean, if you're gonna make things like do a Nadu and stuff,
Classic
you might as
blue
well-
player. Just do more of it. It's
Yeah,
fine.
more is fine. But speaking of somebody who plays one, I do think it's unfair to then make everybody else pay commander tax. But if you choose this one, now you don't have to. It's definitely an advantage.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying it's not an advantage, but I do think there are things that you can do to get around it yourself without having to play those specific commanders that any commander deck could technically have.
well, you say that, but Command Beacon does what when you use it?
Sacks it.
Sacks it.
yeah,
So
sacks
you
it.
lose an entire land for the whole game. Add up the mana cost,
And
of
that only
is
does it
huge.
one time.
Right, but
Yeah,
if you're
the
if you're,
artifact that does it again, sacrifice it. You only get to do it once.
but how
It's
much
not
mana are
the
you
same.
saving when you do it?
It's not nearly the same.
But then,
right?
as opposed to your ninja, who you continually don't have to pay it.
Yeah.
At least with mine, it increases the life cost.
Yeah, I'm not a chump like you though.
And there's there's another creature that does it too. I think it's you use it in artifact equipment decks, a Voltron commander, I think. Trying to think who it is, but there is another one for sure that does it. I think they're a mistake. I think Eminence was probably a mistake, but I think the commanders that can come out with no costs and are also powerful. Like Lisa's pretty powerful. Eureka's crazy powerful.
Yeah. She's a dirty strong
I
guy.
think it was a mistake by them. I think whoops, and now we're left with it.
Yeah, I do think it was a mistake, but I think it makes it unfair. I don't know that it's. I could see. So here's one thing to think about: if they come out with this new rules committee, and if CEDH goes its own way, I could see a world in which Commander says, "Well, then these ones where you don't pay commander tax are getting banned."
I mean, that's hard.
Especially with Eureka, that is a CEDH commander.
I will say this much: if they do create a CEDH council and an EDH council, there are a lot of my commanders that I feel like are going to get banned.
Prosper.
Oh yeah, Prosper for sure is going to be
Calamax.
one. Calamax is going to get banned. Like I
Kess.
have, I have
Pretty
a
much
bunch
all
of
your
people-
decks.
A lot of my decks have and in my defense, I do not put every tutor in every deck that can, like, I don't do that. Yes, they have win combos in them, and yes, I have one with some of my decks on turn 2 or turn 3, but that's because I had the cards in my hand. I did not tutor for them. I did not go and look for them. I don't put tutors in those decks because I feel like as soon as I do that, it makes them CEDH, and I can't play them on an EDH table. So
You also don't play the 0-drop mana rock.
I don't have any, and a lot of that is because I don't have any of those. Those are just, all of those are super expensive cards.
Yeah, I completed my collection. I got my Mox Diamond. I'm so psyched.
Oh, nice. So, but yeah, the Jeweled Lotus, $150. The Mana Crypt, I think it's back up to 100 or whatever.
200.
200. Sorry, my bad. Didn't mean to undercut you. Yeah, all those like zero cost rocks, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal. Although I don't have any of those. I don't run any of them because I don't own any of them. But yeah, even if I did, I wouldn't put them in a lot of decks just because I feel like my decks perform pretty well.
It
So.
is funny though that the three of us are talking about whether they're unfair or not. And although I don't have any of those, I have Eminence, and I also admit it's unfair. We're still playing these cards.
It's legal.
which is what happens, right?
Right.
Because you're either going to be a part of the arms race or you're not.
Well,
And
I will also say, I guess the ultimate thing is when I play Lisa, nobody says that's not fair you're playing Lisa. When you play Eureka, it comes up occasionally, but more as like a laugh.
It's mainly like, oh, so you're just choosing for me to murder you first is usually how that conversation goes. Like,
Eureka's
pretty much.
very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, here is my counter argument to it. Removal exists in the game. If you are not playing removal and you want to complain about these guys who get around. Now I get it. Yuriko's a little bit different because she legitimately just never has commander attacks.
That's right, and she's only like costs
mana.
2 or 3. Or
She
two.
costs
Two.
3 normally, but her command
three?
jutsu
Okay.
is 2.
2. That's ridiculous.
So you're only paying.
I'm
that.
only ever, and I understand that she is a different case because she literally will never. But for example, your commander, if I just keep removing it over and over again, eventually 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 6, 6 becomes 8, 8 becomes 10. There's a lot of the other commanders that they get around it in a similar way where you can pay it differently, but it still costs something. I think the ones, and I will admit it, Yuriko, that never cost anything ever extra except a blue and a black, are a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
Eminence, a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was a bad idea,
Well,
and I think they know
They
it.
could
but-
have done things in Eminence that weren't quite so broken.
Right.
But
Like,
then when they tried it, it was so not broken, it was no good. Nobody wanted it.
the only thing that I can think of that would make Eminence a little bit more fair is if you only got part of the ability if it was in a command zone, and then you got the full ability if it was on the battlefield.
Yeah, that would
like
make
because that
sense.
would encourage you to still cast it, but it's like okay, I'm still
Okay,
getting a small
like for
benefit.
Aloro, if you gain 1 life if it's in the command zone, but you gain 2 life if it's out.
Yeah, right. Because like I built an Aloro deck. It was one of my first commander decks, and I literally just get killed all the time first because they're like, oh, it's Aloro. You're getting free life for no reason.
Yeah.
And I did not realize how upsetting that was to people.
Yeah.
Until you play Aloro, and then you're like, oh, people hate it when you get
And
things for free.
he's probably the number one I would gather is probably Edgar.
yeah, him
Edgar
and Edgar
Markov
are
is the
up there.
worst.
Yeah.
Probably then you have the
Who's the-
Dragon is probably the next because you're getting
Yeah.
mana for free.
Yeah, that's gross.
And then
Not,
after
and
that,
not 1 mana. It's 2 mana less, right?
I think it's
No, it's
one mana
one.
less.
Is it 1 mana?
it's 1 mana less.
Yeah, but it's for every dragon. It's
Yeah.
1 mana less. So I mean, that could be 3 mana less.
Yeah, they could have said the first dragon you cast each turn.
Wouldn't have mattered.
And then
Still
when
would
he's
have
on
been
the field, it's 1.
still would have been broken. I mean, and both those decks, I don't care if I cast Commander at all. It's broken. Yeah, but that's Commander. Commander is really what's the next broken thing that's coming out.
Yeah.
That's just what's going to happen. 0 cost spells, sure.
Or give it Eminence, but give it a negative when it's in the command zone too. Yes, you get this, but you lose. You have a cumulative upkeep of -1 life.
But
or
what will
something.
happen when they make something that's balanced? No one buys it. You got to get people to buy it. So
Oh, yeah,
you
nowadays
do
it's
Eminence, that's broken. So you do commanders that come out with no commander attacks, that's broken. Then you're like, hey, let's one up. Let's just do free spells.
Well, they have
And
the
then-
free commander, Rograk 0.
Yeah,
So
then-
by the way,
Yeah, which Jeff also has.
yeah,
Well,
probably
he
the
actually
most.
costs 0.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
So
but he has commander attacks.
he's probably the one that was the most seen at the
Yeah, with what's
CEDH
his
tournament.
face?
Rograk
No, with
and
all
Arden?
different. They ran him with all different partner commanders.
Yeah, I love Rograk. That's fine.
Yeah,
I don't
just
play
to
that very much
sprinkle red.
either because it's like I just kill people right
By
away
the-
and then they're out of the
By
game.
the way, we were talking earlier, and you said something about Dockside Extortionist. I wasn't going to do a Tales from the Table. This one's very fast, really gross. Somebody, I watched them take Dockside Extortionist. This is not in the tournament. This was in casual game. Took Dockside Extortionist, saw in half again, then drew mine off my deck just randomly.
Oh my
so they
heck.
had 4 instances of Dockside in a
That's-
game.
And then they didn't do anything with all
Wait,
the
no,
mana.
2, 4, 5, 6 Dockside.
Did they
sounds.
win?
Gross.
Yes, they won.
Okay,
That's
that's
so
acceptable.
Yeah. So
But,
I mean, that's
I mean,
just gross.
If you
Yeah.
do that and lose, though, you should never get to play Magic again.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I would say maybe one of the ways they can fix commander attacks is if they drop it down to 1 per time you have to recast it, and they make it where it actually adds to the CMC value of the card instead of it being like commander tax. It's the CMC of this card goes.
It
up
should
by
be half.
1.
It should be half the cost of the card or something in generic mana.
Yeah, I mean, because that
So
way
a
what it will
2-cost
do.
commander would be 1.
I mean, it's so hard though because then
Yeah,
you're
but
like,
then the cheap commanders are so.
Yeah,
good.
like Reese the redeemed my
Yeah.
card. There have been times you guys have killed that like 8 times.
yeah, and it still costs less than our commander.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So, but I mean, that's the thing. It's hard because now it's in the game where we're kind of used to it. We're like, oh yeah, that seems right.
So I guess generally what we're saying is it unfair? Yes. Are there other things that are unfair? Yes. So it balances
Just-
out.
Well,
Yeah.
what we're
And
really
the-
saying is it Magic? Yes.
Yeah.
That's
It
Magic.
balances out with all the other things that are unfair. Just do something else unfair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
just if someone's playing an unfair
It's the arms
commander, you play
makers.
unfair counters that cost you nothing.
Yeah, play as
And-
foretold so that your spells are free.
Yeah, and
Oh,
then the guy who's
that's a
playing
fun card.
the guy who's playing the free free spells and the free commander, you just play infinite land destruction. Like,
Yeah.
just do everything unfair. You'll
I
be
used to
fine.
play As Foretold in my Atraxa deck, but I was like, this is just stupid.
Oh yeah, because you get to proliferate that. Oh, you're gross.
I was just like,
so
this
silly.
is dumb.
Yeah, I'll
This
just
is too
cast
good.
any spell I want for free.
That's what I
thank you.
used to do. Yeah.
Yeah, one a turn. All right.
Jeez.
But I think that's about all the time we have for today. I think those were fun topics. I think that was
Yeah.
kind of a fun episode, just a different way of doing things. I want to thank Jack May at Info Pilgrims, as always, for being our producer and editor. You can check us out at cast@commanderspod.com. You can check us out at patreon.com/commanderspod if you want to throw some money at us. We would not be objective to that. If you want to check out our website, commanderspod.com. And don't forget, please kill Andrew first.
If you can.
Commander's Pod, where the stories unfold, with heroes and villains new and old. Duncan, Jeff, and Sloan guide the way in the world of EDH we play. So tune in, friends, let's draw and go. In the Commander's Pod, the love will show. From our decks to yours, we share the spark in this world of magic. We'll leave a mark.